All right, welcome everybody. We are going to be creating a rectangular desk lamp like this one. And we're going to do it with a power switch and a power adapter, but no dimming knob. That makes the electronics a lot harder to wire, so we're going to leave that out for this project. But I'll show you how to make all the rest. To start off, let me point out a few things. First of all, each face is 2 layers. The reason I use 2 layers is I didn't want those like black tabs to be built into the sides. I like this clean line look that I got with this. So all the joints are built into that inside second layer, so they're hidden by the outside layer. So that's the first thing. The second thing is how we're going to model it. So we're actually going to start on the bottom of this model and draw an outline of where we want the model to be. And then we're going to draw a rectangle for this 2 thickness side and extrude it all the way this whole thickness. So that's kind of a weird way, because you might think to start on this face and draw a large rectangle and then extrude it 2 thicknesses back. But instead we're going to start on this one, draw the edge and extrude it up. So you'll see why we do that. It's for a patterning tool. We want to keep everything lined up just right. So let's jump into Fusion and get started. I'm going to save my file first, and I'm going to call this the rectangular desk lamp. Whoops, I can't spell. And I'm going to call this the final video version. And I'm going to save this into my lamps. And I'm going to hit save. Awesome. Now I've got it going. I'm going to be modeling in centimeters. You might want to as well. To change your units, click over here in Document Settings, click on this little Edit tab, change this to centimeters, and click OK. All right, so as promised, we're going to start on the bottom and work our way up. So I'm going to create my first sketch on the bottom plane here. I want my lamp to be centered on this point. So what I'm going to do is create a rectangular, grab a rectangle tool. I'm going to make it a center point rectangle and turn construction lines on. I'm going to click in the center here, and now this centers my lamp. Actually, before I do this, I actually escape. Let's do parameters first. I love using parameters. They help me stay organized. So in this parameter, I want a couple. The first is going to be the width. This is the left to right width of each side, so how wide each side is going to be. And that's going to be 14.75. I'm choosing this weird number because it fits perfectly on our laser cutting bed to have 4 of them next to each other if they're this size. You could choose to go smaller if you wanted to, but the 14.75 is going to give you a lamp about yay big. Don't go bigger or they won't fit in the plywood. We'll be wasting tons of plywood. I just poked my finger right through the paper of that. Erg. And this is the left to right width. Okay, I'm going to click OK. And now I'm going to add another one. I'm going to do this one for the height. And this one's going to be 29.5. Again, this is designed to fit perfectly on a piece of plywood without any waste. So, well, very little waste. And then here I'm going to say this is the top to bottom height. Click OK. I need another parameter for thickness. And go grab some plywood and measure it with calipers. I grabbed 4 pieces of plywood that I'm going to use, and I measured them to be 10.63 millimeters. And I had 4 of them, so I'm going to do divided by slash line 4. And that's going to calculate out 2.658 millimeters, because that's what the calipers measure in. So all I have to do is change this unit up here to millimeters, and everything will be just fine. And this is the plywood thickness. And hit OK and hit OK. Now we have our parameters in. So I'm going to grab that rectangle tool again, switch over to a center point rectangle, make sure construction lines are on, and I'm going to draw a construction rectangle here at the bottom. I'm going to call this width. So W, enter, and then one more enter to lock it in place. Now I actually want this side to be width as well, because it's going to be the same all the way around. So I could have typed in width over here, but I'm going to do it a different way. I'm going to use what's called the equal constraint. So what this does is the next two things you click on, it's going to make those two things equal to each other. So I want this side of the rectangle to be equal to this side, turning it into a square. Now, whenever I change this one number, this side automatically knows a change. And you can see that on these little, this is an equal constraint symbol, and this one is as well. So these two are set equal. And because of the geometry, the other are all equal as well. Now, the reason I like doing it this way instead of typing the number twice is now my sketch is cleaner. Instead of having two measurements, one here and one here, I just have one measurement that's driving all the rest. All right. So I'm going to hit escape to get out of the equals tool. And now what I want to do is model off this one side down here. I'm going to use the bottom edge. You could use whatever edge you want. It doesn't really matter. Turn off my construction lines because this is my actual extrusion. And I'm going to change this bottom thing to width because, again, I want to use my parameters. So W, for me, I did WID enter. You could just do W enter for width. And then tab T for thickness, enter. That'll enter the thickness. But here I want it to be two thicknesses. So I could do two things. I could do plus and do another T enter for thickness, or I can just do times an asterisk 2 for two thicknesses thick, enter. Now I have my extrusion. Now I need to extrude this little rectangle up, and I need to extrude it up the full height. So I'm typing H, enter. That's the height, and then enter to finish the extrusion. So now we've got our first side, not done, but started. So I'm going to create another sketch. I'm going to do that on the front face of this one. I want to create now a cutout for the bottom piece here and a cutout for the main opening here. To do that, I'm going to grab my rectangle tool, come down here and start at the very bottom of the sheet and just do a random sized rectangle and click it in place. Notice it's all blue, which means it hasn't been constrained much yet. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to dimension from this edge to this edge, and I'm going to do this as 1.5 centimeters. And I want this edge, this over here, to also be 1.5 centimeters. So I'm going to click on the left side, the right side of this, the right side I should say, and then I'm going to click to place it here. But instead of typing 1.5, I'm just going to come over here and click on this 1.5. It puts a D9 in there, meaning this is the 9th dimension I've used. So it's going to hit enter, and it's going to make it the same as this one. Now, if I hit escape out of the dimensioning tool, if I click on this one, and I come back and change it later, 1.75, notice it automatically makes that one 1.75. So really convenient to have. I'm going to put it back to 1.5. And then I'm going to come here, I'm going to dimension this top one to the bottom one, and I'm going to call that 1 centimeter. So that'll make that little space down here, it looks like it's made, it'll have these little legs on the side. So that looks pretty sharp. I like that a lot. Now I'm going to do is create the main opening. So I'm going to create a sketch up here. It doesn't matter where, just anywhere randomly up here. And now I'm going to add in some dimensions. But instead of adding a bunch more dimensions and making everything really cluttered, I'm going to line this up using constraints. So what I really want is this edge here to line up with the foot down here. So I'm going to use my collinear tool up here. And all collinear says is, hey, take the two lines I click on next and make them line up with each other. Not like on top of each other, but just in line with each other. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. And I'm going to make this outside edge here collinear with that outside edge. And the same thing, the left edge over here with the left edge over here. And that looks great. And now notice I've gotten it perfectly matched without having to add more number constraints to it. Now the next part I do need to constrain, or do need to add a dimension to. I'm going to click on the top of the opening and the top of the overall thing. And I'm going to make this that same 1.5 that's down here. So I'm going to click down here on D9 and then hit enter. And now they're all three linked together. So if I make a change later, all three of them will change together, which is what I want. Now, this part down here between the opening of the foot, this is where all the electronics are going to go inside there. You can see the electronics are inside there. So I need to make some space for that. So I'm going to dimension from this bottom edge to the top edge of the opening here. And I'm going to say that's 4 centimeters. And I'm going to hit enter. All right, so that's fully done right now. That's the opening that we're going to decorate in. That's the opening for the legs. We need to extrude both of them. I'm going to hit E for extrude, click on the top rectangle, the bottom rectangle, and then I can either do two things. I know this is 2 thicknesses thick, so I can type in here that I want a negative T enter times 2. That will give me 2 thicknesses. So an asterisk means times 2 or times. Or I could come back and just drag this all the way through where I'm cutting, and then come over here to my menu and choose all the way through, and then click OK. So either way works just fine. All right, so there's my side. And now it's starting to actually look like this side, right? Except for the decoration on the inside, it looks pretty solid so far. So next thing we need to do, though, is we need to build in some structure so that we can connect them, the tabs to connect them to. We're going to do that on the back side of the face. So this part's important. Make sure you're rolling your model over so you can see the back side of this face and create a sketch on this back side. Not on one of these orange things down here, but on the side. Anywhere on this side, you can create it. Click right there. And now I'm going to create on the right-hand side, I'm going to create a narrow rectangle that starts right up in this corner. And I'm going to just say it's going to be 1 thickness wide. And I'm going to hit tab to go to the next one. And this is going to be the full height of it. So H, enter, enter, and I've got that rectangle now. Okay, now I'm going to create another rectangle. This is for the actual tabs now. I'm going to create another rectangle anywhere on here. As long as I'm not on something that locks me in place, create a tab here, and this is going to be thickness on that. Whoops, shift tab. Thickness, T, enter, tab, and then 2 centimeters is a good tab height. So thickness and 2 centimeters. Now I'm going to line this up in the center. So I'm going to grab this little line here, or I'm going to grab my midpoint tool, which is the triangle tool up here. I'm going to click on the small side of the rectangle and then the big line here, and that's going to line those 2 things up in place. All right, so awesome. 2 things done. Now I just need to create a rectangular pattern. Zoom in. I want to create a pattern of this tab. Zoom back out. I want it to go, so I just pulled it up a little bit so I can see which one I'm dealing with. So the number changed here, so this is what I'm dealing with. So I want this one to be symmetric. I want it to go in both directions, up and down. And then I'm going to drag it right out to the edge. I'm going to zoom in. Yep, right there. So that ended up being 13.75 for me. If you're doing the same as I am, that you can use that number. And I'm going to increase this. I want to say I have to use an odd number, remember. I think 7 looks, yeah, 7 looks pretty good. If I use like 6, notice how there's now 1 missing down here because it counts this as one of them. So I put 3 this way and 3 this way. I need 7, so I get that last little one down here as well. So always odd numbers when you're starting in the middle. And then I'm going to click OK. Now I've got them. Now I just need to extrude this. So I'm going to hit E for extrude, click on all these little rectangles that we just created. And I'm going to extrude this down 1 layer. So I'm going to do it up is positive, so negative T, enter, and enter. And that just cut it. So now you can see there's those little tabs that we're going to use to align stuff as we start gluing things together. Now we don't actually need to cut the joints in the other side because we're going to pattern this and we're going to create this same piece 4 times all the way around. And that last 4th piece is going to actually cause the cut on this side. All right, you'll see what I mean in just a second. So I'm going to go back to home view now, and we're going to create a pattern of this and create 4 of them real quick. And that's where we'll stop this video. So I'm going to come down here to create pattern, and I'm going to use a circular pattern. It feels so weird to do a circular pattern for something that's rectangular and that's square in shape, but I'm going to choose bodies for my circular pattern thing. So I'm going to do this whole body, click on that body, and then for axis that we want to rotate around, we want to go here. And this is why we centered our model on that axis so we could use this line right now. And we're going to click here and it says, hey, you want to make 3 of them? We say, oh no, I want to make 4 of them. And notice how it just made 4 of them in a circle around this, but it's a circle with flat sides. So a circle with 4 flat sides is called a square. It's so bizarre that it works out that way. And then let's see, that all looks good. And we're going to say, okay. Now, right now, if you notice, I'm going to go here and name these before we're done. So this is, I'm going to go back to home view. So my front is right here. So this one is front. This one is right. This one is back. And that means this one must be left. My advice to you is organize your body so you can find them easily. So at this point, we'll hold off on the video here and we'll come back to this in the next video and learn how to cut all the joints in really fast.